All right, it is 6 o'clock and we're going to call board meeting number 980 to order. I'd like to start by acknowledging that we are privileged to meet on the unceded and ancestral territories of the Squamish and Stallion Nations. With that, we have an amended agenda to be approved. Anyone's prepared to make the motion?
That the agenda of this meeting be approved.
That the amended agenda of this meeting be approved?
Sure, that's not on my sheet yet, but yes, that the amended agenda of this meeting be approved.
Thank you, Lisa. Second by Cynthia. Are there any objections? Seeing and hearing none, then we can continue. There are some minutes there for recommendation.
That the minutes of the board meeting held on January 17th, 2024 be adopted.
Thank you, Lisa. Is there a second for that? Thank you, April. Any objections? Okay, seeing and hearing none, then that brings us to, we have another recommendation.
That the summary minutes of the in-camera board meeting held on January 17th, 2024 be adopted.
Thank you, Lisa. A second by Cynthia. Are there any objections? Okay, seeing and hearing none, that's carried. So it brings us to our announcements. So chairperson's remarks. It's been, I think, 3 weeks since we last met, and it's been busy one. So I'll just report on some of the activity that I've had. Starting on January 18th, there's our BC School Trustees Association had a board chairs call. The Assistant Deputy Minister did a financial update. We talked about Advocacy Day that I attended in October, I think it was, in Victoria, and how we want to, that was the first of its kind, and how we want to see that develop and change. Conversation regarding the upcoming election and what impacts that could have on how what impacts to the districts will be from there. So there was just an update on that. There's some conversation behind codes of conduct as well for as it relates to trustees. On the 30th, there was another board chairs call, and this was and you probably saw the provincial announcement that came out regarding cell phone usage, and there's an expectation that that we are to develop and implement something by September. Chris, you were on that call as well, were you going to talk about it as well?
Yeah, I'll add to it a little bit afterwards.
Okay,
great, thank you.
And on the 31st, Cynthia and I, the vice chair, met with the CEO of BCSTA. There'll be a report that'll come out from that conversation probably next month, as we are just working through some things that other districts are working through. On February 6th, we had agenda setting. On the 9th, I attended the along with our superintendent and secretary treasurer, attended the BCSTA partner liaison meeting in Richmond, and I was quite enlightened. I really didn't understand what AI was. So we had a full conversation about that, and apparently I use it. I just didn't know what it was. And amongst other presenters that were at the event, and it was it's actually quite a full day, and I was really quite impressed with the conversation. And then last night I attended virtually attended the Village of Pemberton Council meeting. So those are, and then there have been a few calls with the superintendent, and some things happening in the district and whatnot, and probably odds are. So yeah, it's been a busy 3 weeks for me. with that, are there any trustee remarks? Okay. And hearing none, then the superintendent.
All right, thank you very much. So I do want to touch on a few things, and just for folks at home and the students, we've got our screens that we're looking at to see you, and then we also look to our colleagues that are on the table. So I apologize if my head is spinning back and forth at the swivel on the screen. But first of all, I want to just say Gung Hei Fa Shui to everybody. That's to mark the Lunar New Year, Chinese New Year, on the began on February 10th. And it goes until, I believe, the 21st and ends in the Lantern Festival. 2024, as I mentioned, ushers in the Year of the Dragon, which symbolizes power, nobility, honor, luck, and success. And I just encourage folks to take a look at our district website under news and events, where we have a link to more information about Lunar New Year and the Year of the Dragon. I also want to mention, and again, this is found on our website, that February is Black History Month. And I encourage everyone to learn more about the past and present and future, of course, contributions of Black people in Canada, and to learn more about Black history, especially Black history in the place we call Canada. I'll just follow up on what Rebecca shared about the partner liaison meeting. Again, I'm finding year after year these to be very well organized, very meaningful information being shared, very much transparency on the part of the Ministry of Education, and I really appreciate that. And one of the takeaways I wanted to share with the board and with the public was a recognition, not just in BC, Canada, but really around the world, ongoing challenges with teacher and supporting staff recruitment and retention. So I think it's important that they shared that was an ongoing challenge, but also the hope that with the increased teacher education spaces, for example, at our universities that offer pre-service teacher programs and work to lessen the amount of red tape for those with credentials from countries outside of Canada and even in other provinces in Canada, to sort of smooth the way, because we know there are many jurisdictions in BC, for example, who still have a huge number of uncertified teachers teaching, and I'm sure they're doing their best on letters of permission. But we all would really want the best for all of our students, and we know the importance of certified, qualified teachers in their place. I'll also just speak a little bit more about the cell phone announcement. So again, that was January 26th, and Premier Eby spoke about restrictions use of cell phone during instructional time. And I just want to assure our public that we have school codes of conduct that make reference to the use of cell phones during instructional time. But with the new information that's coming, the purpose is to ensure some real consistency across the province and guidelines that we will all adhere to, of course, with input from local boards. And they are looking specifically at the potential for some legislation around including these policies or guidelines as part of district codes of conduct. And then how that is operationalized will obviously begin through our admin procedures at the school level. So just letting the public know that's coming. We're hoping to have more information before spring break. We'll share what we can. And again, as the board chair shared, these new guidelines will be in place for September for the 24-25 school year. In addition to the restrictions on cell phone use during instructional time, is also a commitment from the ministry to work with social media companies to see what they can do about strengthening some means of access to support our students. And also to ensure it's really clear, and I'll just share it now through the Erase program, Erase Bullying, that there are clear and easy access points for anyone, but students especially, to report instances of any online bullying, because we know, want to keep all of our students safe. I will mention on that note too, the district has been putting on lately a number of both in-person and virtual sessions for parents on such subjects as cyberbullying, digital literacy, mental health. The most recent one you'll find on our website is for I believe mental health and substance abuse, which is hosted by the district, but offered by the experts, by community partners. So again, I would encourage families to take a look. Again, always under our district website, under news and events. And those opportunities are also posted on school websites. Finally, I do want to share that this Friday, as I'm sure any students on the screen know, is a professional day for them. But for all of us, it is our district professional day. We call that Implementation Day. And it will be the first time in, I believe, 4 years or 3 years that we've all been able to meet in person. So we have over 700 staff and community members attending over 2 sites at Housetown Secondary and Don and Ross Middle School to learn together. And I will share the theme of this year's Implementation Day is intersectionality. And I'm going to read this so I get it right, which is a framework that helps us to see how the many identities that each of us carry influence how we see and experience the world, and as importantly, how others see us. And this work is anchored by 2 of the enduring understandings of our education plan: inclusion as a right, or is a right, and diversity is a strength. So I really look forward to reporting back to the board and the public at our next board meeting about how that went. Thank you very much.
Yeah. I'm excited, and I think this might be one of the first times trustees, and we're in the first time in a long time the trustees have been invited to
Yes, amongst
participate.
the honored guests or trustees, and we're thrilled to have you.
No, I think the honor is ours to be included. Before I go to you, Danielle, I just want to jump in. I knew I had more notes about the partner group meeting from Friday. Some of the takeaways that I had, other than AI. But you know what was a little bit frightening is afterwards, after we left there, that ChatGPT started showing up all over my Facebook feed. And I'm like, wow. So I loved how they referred to our responsibility to develop flourishing humans. I thought that was beautiful. Beautiful is the way they put that. Interesting conversation behind parental rights and gender identity and our responsibility and you know, for fear of repercussion for some of our students and things like that. So it was, you know, quite touching, and you know, you're conflicted as a parent and as a person, and out of protecting students, you know, sometimes it all isn't hand in hand. We talked about the Indigenous Education Councils and how those will be changing and through the tripartite agreement, and how they're currently ours. In the district, we have 2 trustee representatives voting on that committee, but that will no longer be the case once the terms of reference are developed and changed, and it'll be up to the council themselves, the role that trustees will play as a part of that. There was talk about the targeted fund policy, which I don't know that we have, but like a policy per se behind targeted funds. I know we have.
Yeah, it's interesting when the ministry uses the term policy, sometimes they're speaking to procedures and how we do things.
Oh,
And what we learned was not all districts like ours have at first an Indigenous Education Council
yes,
operation.
that was a surprise.
And the deference to approving those funds has been for a number of years. We follow, and the board follows the recommendation of the Indigenous Education Council. In many districts, that's not the case, and it's the board making the decisions about how that money is spent. And so the new legislation is to ensure that folks are, again, in a deference model. to the Indigenous Education Council, which has been our practice
Yes.
for, since before I even got here. So I will say that we are doing the work, we are doing good work. But again, I look forward to any additional guidelines and advice that we will certainly follow.
Yeah, so that, and then there were some updates that we already were aware of that some ministry staff attended and provided some of that. It was interesting that there was a conversation behind and looking forward, because it's becoming the norm, is the use of school property for emergency services, flooding, fires and stuff. We often have the largest structures in the communities. And they're able to house, so we had some people speak out about that in particular. I think the flooding in Merritt area, I believe,
Yes.
was one of the examples cited. So it would be good for us to at some point have a conversation behind what our role is in our territory. In the various communities. Then I had just a little touch in with the president of BCSTA and the CEO, just a touching base with them over our lunch hour. And yeah, so those are the notes that I was missing. So thank you. And now we have the Secretary Treasurer's remarks.
Thank you. I guess we'll be talking a little bit later today about, today we need to have the amended 2023-24 budget bylaw passed today. So you'll be hearing a little bit more about that, but the Finance Committee recommended that to come forward today that the amended budget needs to be approved by the end of February, according to the School Act. So we'll be looking to see that later. If there's any questions of clarification from the public, they can be sent to board@sd48.bc.ca. And any questions should be related to board agenda items. And we'll do our best to respond to questions at the end of the meeting.
Thank you. So if there are any comments or questions, we can move on. No receiving delegations, but we do have student staff presentation. Myrtle Phillips School report out on their winter concert. So we have Chris Dantas is is that the teacher?
Yes, that's me right here with two
There you
students, Mercy and Sam. We can easily, hey everyone, we can easily screen share our presentation, but I did just last minute fire one off in an email, so I don't know, whatever is easiest. Yeah, whatever you prefer.
I have it.
Oh, you have the
Oh, yeah.
presentation. Oh, do you have the presentation actually? Chris, who did you send the presentation to?
He said he could.
Yeah, can he screen share? He has the ability.
Oh, he said he couldn't.
Let him take it.
If not, I just sent one off 4 minutes ago to Archdeep, but we can just screen share if that's easy as well.
Okay, yeah.
Yep, if you
Go
can
for
screen
it.
share, go for it.
Yeah, for sure. Okay,
Good.
fine.
Yeah.
But you guys start talking. Yeah, let's do that first.
Hello, we are Sam and Mercy, students in Mr. D's grade 6 and 7 class. We're going to talk about our chaotic and creative December, where we collaborated as a class to create a school-wide winter concert and our very own class music video. You'll see on some of the slides some student reflections and self-assessment of our collaboration and contribution skills, as well as of what we learned at the end of the presentation. If you also like, we have our video you can watch at the end, or we can send you a copy to view at a later date. We aren't sure how the quality will be through the screen. Also, this presentation was created collaboratively with the class, making sure that everyone's input was included and that all ideas were shared. The winter concert is an annual tradition at our school, involving all of the classes in our school. For the last 2 years, we haven't had a music teacher to plan and produce this concert. So, our class decided to take on the task of writing, producing, and performing the play. The idea of our play was about 5 friends who were late to the theater. However, with a holiday miracle, the 5 got to enjoy the play together. And throughout their journey back to meet up with their friends, each class would have one point in time in the concert to sing their class song. The original idea started in November with a small group of volunteer students from our class. We met during lunch time to discuss options for the play. We made a timeline and set goals to make sure we finished on time. Once we had a first draft completed, we presented it to Mr. D, who gave us feedback as we continued to make revisions. We spent most of December inside for lunches and recesses, planning and preparing for the concert night. We had to collaborate with each teacher to make sure we knew what song we were going to be singing and ensure it went with the idea of our play. Once we got the green light from Mr. D, we started to assign roles to every student in our class for the night of the presentation. These included actors, stagehands, audio technicians, producers, MCs, and pop creation. This was a test of our collaboration because we had to work together with actors, lighting crew, and sound tech crew to teach them the production we created. But everyone really rose to the occasion and we were effective working together. Leading up to the night, we had the gym blocked off for 3 days while we decorated and set up all the sound and visual equipment. As well, we had each class come in and practice their song with the actors between rehearsals. Overall, the performance was a success and there were no issues, and we were all happy when it was over. The other project that we were working on that made December so chaotic was our winter music video. As a tradition, Mr. D creates a music video with his class with a holiday theme. This year, we went above and beyond and really created something awesome together. Our song that we chose was Run, Run, Rudolph, and we decided to create a story of students escaping the clutches of a lazy TOC and running off to go ski for a day. We filmed different scenes, such as hiding from teachers and pulling skis out of odd places. We also learned filming and editing skills and worked on our planning and collaboration skills. The main difference between the planning process and the holiday concert was the video. Everyone in the class was involved. For our winter video, it required a lot of planning. We brainstormed as a class and collaborated as much as possible. Mr. D led the class through several brainstorming exercises, where we took down everyone's ideas and incorporated as many as possible. From there, we started to narrow ideas and link them together until we had an awesome, hilarious story that everyone was on board for. This idea involved some speaking parts, using a green screen, and even recording Foley and sound effects in post-production. This video was then played at the winter concert as our song. Mr. D showed us how to create a planning sheet that was organized by dates and shots with locations and required prompts. The main goal of this process was to be completely prepared by the time the cameras came out. This is the list of things we learned throughout these 2 projects that we came up with as a class. We worked on stuff like collaboration skills. We also learned how to work in a group without specific guidance. We also worked on how to fully record background sounds, as well as continuity of shots and transitioning.
We're not too sure if we can just send this out to everyone later on, but I don't know how the screen recording of the music video will go, but we can just skip over that for now.
If you have any questions, please feel free to ask them now.
Are we gonna see the video?
Would you like to?
Yes, we'd love to.
Okay, I don't know how it's gonna play here. We can give it a go.
Give it a try.
Yeah.
Or Archie can give it a try if this doesn't work.
Okay.
Looks like you gotta give it a.
So I guess it's just.
Oh, here we go. There we go. Oh, that's a missing sound.
Oh, the sound's not going through.
No.
Oh, that is above me. I don't know how to share with one of those people.
Yeah,
How does
I'm
this
right
go?
with you there.
Yeah.
I'll show
Shoot.
In my presentation, there's no window. There's some chatting option where it says share sound.
Apparently there's an option somewhere to share sound.
Mute.
Where's that? That's mute us. Oh, you know
I
what?
believe you have to unshare and share again, and then
Oh,
you
okay.
get that option.
Okay, so then let's go back.
So bottom left, it says, when you open to share, it says share sound, and you just click on
Oh,
that.
nice.
Oh, I've been there.
I've only been on the receiving end, not the giving end. And then present. Cool. That going okay?
Hey.
Welcome, friends. I hope you are cozied up to a fire with a warm cup of cocoa. Tonight, I'm here to tell you a wonderful tale about a mischievous group of students who, with a little bit of inspiration and a record dump of snow, decided to choose skiing over a day of learning.
Never.
Hope you enjoy.
Oh.
Did you guys see the forecast today? There's so much snow. I know. Wouldn't it be cool to go skiing? Yeah, we have too much work to do. Yeah.
Ugh, I wish I was skiing.
I know.
Wait, where's Mr. D?
Welcome, students. I'm your sub-teacher, Mr. Abagnale. I guess your teacher left a video on Google Classroom. Can someone put it on? I'm trying to beat this level on Candy Crush.
Hey everyone, I'm just really not feeling good today, so I'm gonna stay home. But I've made some assignments on Google Classroom. I just want you to check your IXL. There's a new 100-word challenge. Jackson, Leo, Rio, please just stay in your seat. Seth, please also just remain calm throughout this. Sam, Toby, you're probably gonna be in charge today. Jonas, if you just keep your volume down, that'd also just be wonderful. I'll be back tomorrow. Yeah, have a good day, everyone.
Okay, that was a bit weird. Just go do some work or something. I don't know.
That's pretty good.
So, with almost everyone escaping according to plan, the class rushed up the hill and off to the mountain to enjoy a sneaky day of skiing, as even their teachers seemed to have a similar idea.
Never.
And have a wonderful holiday.
That was absolutely fantastic. I loved it.
If you have any questions, please feel free to ask.
Questions from trustees? Cynthia?
I have a question. I'm not sure if the kids know how to answer it, but maybe Mr. Dantas knows how to answer it. Is there any film festivals that you could enter that film into? It's fantastic, and I think you would win.
That's a good question. I'm not too sure. Yeah, Student Film Fest, actually. I never thought of that. I know they're doing one at Whistler Secondary this year. They did it last year as well. Yeah, that's a good idea, actually. See what we can do with that thing.
Yeah, I remember. Are the, sorry if I can just interrupt again. The kids are in grade 6 and grade 7?
Correct, yeah.
Maybe you could try and slip them into the Whistler High School's film festival if they're going to do it again, as the grade 7s will be there next year, maybe. It was tremendous.
I
So
am
good.
judging it, so it might be a little conflict.
Oh.
That could be a problem.
Maybe
be an
skiing that
exhibition
day.
piece, an exhibition piece.
Yeah, no, that could actually be pretty fun to do that. Yeah. I like that a lot. That's a good idea.
Melissa?
I don't have a question. I just want to say well done. That was awesome to watch. Good job, guys, girls, all of you.
Thanks.
Anyone else? Mr. Superintendent?
Yeah, I want to thank the students for their hard work. I want to thank the teacher, obviously, to help the facilitation of all of this, but Mr. Dantas will be in touch about that day you owe us. But no, in all seriousness, I really appreciated how you referenced many of the competencies that we're trying to focus on. So the collaboration, the creativity. Oh my goodness, I think you would have hit them all. The critical thinking, just through the planning and the process. I know that it looks like a lot of fun, but I also recognize the tremendous amount of work that went into that. And you're all just to be commended for a wonderful job. And please share our thanks and the joy you brought us to the rest of the class. It was absolutely phenomenal.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Great job, guys.
Have a good night, everyone.
You too.
Thank you.
You're welcome
You
to
too.
stay for the meeting.
We got parent pickups here.
Fair enough.
See you, everyone.
Enjoy your evening.
Thank you.
It was good.
That was so funny.
Yeah.
School was way more fun than when I went to school.
It was so
Hey,
good.
you know what I picked up out of there? I could see that happening, like,
Oh, for real.
for me, like, in my high school.
Yeah, for real. Their classroom was there when they were making it. They made this huge green screen and everything. It was I was there the day they did the vehicle driving as well. And that was the first thing that the teacher said is the children were not really driving.
Just so you know, I heard him gasp over here.
Thank you
Like
first.
they were driving his car like really well, but they didn't drive.
They did a great job.
It was really, really good.
Alrighty, well, here you have a tough act to follow, my friend.
Don't even know where to start, but
Now we have the 2022-2023 graduation rates.
yes, thank you. So I've shared my screen. I'm just going to put it on present, but before I begin, I just want to introduce for the public our Director of Instruction for Indigenous Education. Pauline is going to help us with the presentation. I'm just going to open up and then she's going to take over. So let me just clear my thing out of the way so I can get to the slideshow. There we go. Again, I just want to remind folks that with the new reporting order that we have as a jurisdiction, and I'm speaking to the Framework for Enhancing Student Learning report that's due every year. And it's at that time that we provide the review and the analysis of the year. including some very key data points, including graduation rates, completion rates, and a whole host of other important things that we look at every year in our efforts to improve and continue to provide excellent education to our students. But rather than wait until the June review, we did get our completion rates out, and they are been provided to us, and they are also available to the public. So we thought we should address them now, because as you can see, we are continuing to have some significant concerns being raised. Archie or someone, can someone clear, is that me? Because I don't have it on my screen, which is interesting, but yet I have the mouse here. If I can make it work. Nope. Okay. Thanks. Go back to. Thanks so much. So this is for the 2022-2023, so last school year. And what we noticed, while we have a pretty stable trend for when we count all students in our district, and that's the orange up here, that's at about 95% graduation rate. Now, we did see a slight decline from our fantastic 1920 at around 100%. We do believe there's some COVID factors engaged in here, as well as in and out migration, but we're pretty stable when we look at all students. When we specifically focus on students of Indigenous ancestry, however, we are noticing a declining trend. And of course, that is very, very concerning for us, because as you know, for years and years, we've been working so very hard to tighten that gap. But we are seeing I would call it a significant drop, and
So by percentile, what is that?
So this is now, again, it's also based on the numbers of students. So the smaller cohort, the larger the impact has been when folks don't graduate.
But all the other years are
But
the same
yes.
factors, so I'm just,
Yes.
I just can't tell.
Yeah, so this is 74.
74?
Yes. So we're approaching levels in comparison around 2015. Right?
Is that COVID?
No, so that was referenced in an earlier, obviously, when we had that time, we had a number of students leave our district. So this is what's important to recognize, is this captures all students from grade 8 onward that were in our district. So we know there's been a lot of, I'll leave Pauline to give some more details, but there are a number of factors that may be the reason why we have some drops. But as we do every year, we know the stories of each of these students. So these are individuals. We won't obviously speak to individual circumstance, but we do recognize that we need to do more and be better for these students. When I compare our rates for students with diverse abilities, they're actually doing reasonably well considering COVID, and they're outperforming students of Indigenous ancestry, which again is interesting because, as Colleen will share later, we also have a large portion of students of Indigenous ancestry with designations. So we just need to disaggregate the information a little bit more, which Colleen is going to do. And then what I want to show lastly before turning it over is we see exactly where the drop happens. So this is our grade to grade transition rate, and it's about 10 years worth of data. So what you note, and I know it's a little bit hard to see, but the red is all students, so not disaggregated, but all students. The blue.
No, they can't see me.
I'm sorry. Okay, the blue is students of Indigenous ancestry, and the orange is students with diverse abilities. And what we note is a pretty close, pretty equal spread, and it's almost 100%. So we are getting students all the way to grade 12, and then we recognize that's where the challenge lies. Now it's still an aggregate of a number of things throughout the years, but we're not seeing any more, big drop off in other grades. It's really at the grade 11 to 12, those grade 12 year, which seems to have the biggest impact.
Can I just ask a question before we go any further, just so I can understand as we go through the slide deck? So when we're talking about completion rates, are we talking about graduating in that 5th year? Or does it include students who might need an additional year to get it done?
Thank you very much. I should have
Usually the
clarified,
sixth
this is the 6th year grad rate.
Okay, so it includes that additional year. As
That's right.
potential. Okay, thank you.
Yes, thank you for that.
But I believe if we go, because we can extract that and just do a 5-year,
Yes,
then the differences are even
even,
far more.
yes, they are.
Yeah.
Now, we recognize too, that many students, especially those that have a designation, may actually benefit from that additional year with us, because what we don't want to do is get kids who, through the system as quick as possible, who may require
More
additional
support.
time with us and the opportunity to upskill so that we can ensure kids are crossing that stage with, you know, we always say dignity, purpose, and options. And if we're trying to get them through quickly, then in 5 years, I don't know that we're always doing them a good service, but that's going to vary from student to student, of course. So I do want to turn it over to Colleen, and Colleen, just tell me when to advance the slide and I will do so.
You can move it along. We do have a lot of data that we've been afforded from the ministry. I actually just received, I was showing Chris a little bit earlier, just received a data set that we're going to be piloting. We're one of the few districts that is live real time now data, so we can see everything about a student. So any of the current report cards, absences, everything about a student. If they've withdrawn, just enrolled, we can see absolutely everything on their profile, which is fabulous, because usually you have to pull them from multiple different data sets, and then you don't know who those students are. And that's a challenge, is when we have data like that Chris just showed, it's very difficult to, like, it would be nice if you could click on it and go, well, who are all the students who are successful and then who wasn't successful? This is what the ministry is trying to provide school districts now, is that ability. So when we do look at something like that, we can drill down and see who those students are and be able to figure out where is our story? Where do those students come from that aren't making it through our system? And what more can we do for those students that we have coming through? And I think that if you want to go to the next one, I always like to our data story is an important one. Most of this information is from our How Are We Doing report. So the How Are We Doing report has been published, I think it's in the 21st year or 22nd year of publication. This is a publication that Finesse has worked diligently. It's morphed over the years of what it has in it, as there's been a better understanding of data and where some important sticking points are for Indigenous students. So when you take a look at the students, as you know, from 1701, we do not have 651 students who have Indigenous ancestry. However, the ministry identifies that if you were ever Indigenous, so say you were in another school district and you had self-identified as being Indigenous, and then moved to Sea to Sky and never identified, we never knew that you had Indigenous ancestry. However, the ministry always keeps track of that. So some of the data now, there's actually 2 categories where we can see who's current and then who's been ever Indigenous. And so that it helps us figure out who did we miss, or who maybe was erroneously at one time identified themselves as Indigenous ancestry. That does happen. And the one unfortunate part about our data warehouse that we have is if one person says, oh yes, I have Indigenous ancestry, and they're like, oh no, I misunderstood what that meant. We can never take it away. It's there forever in the data set. So there is some leeway. This is about 104 students difference between our 1701. And I only know of maybe 2 or 3 students who've actually opted out of services that we provide services for, not 104. So those will be something we'll be looking at a little bit more closely. This is unique that we have 29% of all of our Indigenous students live within their community. So that means they're living on reserve in one of our communities throughout the corridor. This is another.
Why do you say it's unique?
Unique because most school districts, students don't live on reserve. They live off reserve.
That seems low to me.
It seems low.
Isn't that funny? Growing up in the corridor, that
Yes,
seems low.
I think it seems low.
Yeah.
You have to think of, like I grew up in Maple Ridge, where we only had one small reserve. We had Catesy. And it was really tiny. We didn't have a lot of people coming from that reserve, but we had a large Indigenous population. Even Mission, we had 4 or 5 reserves, but not all of them had housing on them. They were land-based, but there wasn't necessarily housing on there, and some of the reclamation as well. Some school districts may have a little bit more than that, and some will, like Burnaby doesn't have any land-based, so they have 0 students. Richmond is very similar, so some school districts will have 0.
Yeah, I just meant it seemed low for us.
Oh, for us.
Yeah, to me. And how I would see things, like when you look at, you have 2,500 people on reserve, and I think it's 2,500 in Wheelbot.
Yeah.
300 in my community, so.
Yeah.
To me, that seems.
But you have to think about the percentage of the full district, so of the 5,300 students we have.
Yeah.
29%. So I think it's fairly significant.
But it's 29% of the
Of the
Indigenous students, not the
population.
5,000.
Yeah, true. Yeah, so it is, I think it's a fairly significant population, biggest one I've worked with in my 3 districts that I've worked in, for sure. Another area that I think is a positive, that they report out on is that some districts have, we always talk about some districts, some other districts, that there's a large proportion of Indigenous students in alternate programs. And alternate programs are great for students who do need different schooling, different type of delivery. So it's not that it's a bad thing. It's just that there are some districts that have a large disproportion of Indigenous students in them. And we have 2% of our Indigenous students are in the alternate program versus 0.04% of our non-Indigenous students. It's equal number when you look at it. I think there's 34 students and there's 17 of each. But because there's not as many Indigenous students, it's just a different percentage of students. One of the unique things that always gets brought up is around students having diverse abilities. We talked a little bit about that earlier with the completion rate. Sorry. With the completion rate, we saw that there were students with diverse ability completing at different times. And so when you take a look at our numbers, 25% of all the students who are identified as having diverse abilities are Indigenous and 75% are non-Indigenous. But then when you extrapolate that and put it against their actual numbers of students in the school district, the percentages are slightly different. So 29% of our Indigenous students do have diverse abilities, and only 10% of the non-Indigenous students do. So that's something that's brought up and looked at quite a bit.
Is there an assessment process behind it? Like, how do you decide who has diverse identity?
Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of assessments that would occur in order to get a designation. And so there's a very strict protocol of how that would occur. And it's funny that you asked that, because
Would Indigenous students have easier access to some of those?
no, it's usually all done through the school district. We do have some private assessments that are done, but I think there was one time in the South, they talked about having received a grant and had a lot of the assessments done outside of the school district. This is going back quite a few years ago though now.
Yeah, and I think it's important to note that what we do note and what the Squamish Nation has shared, that they are seeing an increased number of students diagnosed, designated with autism. And autism is a medical diagnosis that is not done through a school psychologist or a school assessment. So,
But would be captured under.
but would
this.
be captured. So we have to just be clear that we're speaking about those designations that a school psychologist can identify, such as a learning disability. And then the medical diagnosis of chronic health, like diabetes or autism.
They're all rolled up in there.
Yeah, but the reason I asked
Yes.
that is when we're looking at the numbers. When I know in some of our communities, because after we took over our own health provincially. That there are a lot of these services that, you know, we have nurses come to community and doctors come to community in the remote communities as well. So some of the access to services has increased. So perhaps the medical diagnoses of sorts can be captured and therefore attributed to the larger numbers. Or
It definitely could be one of the factors. And I know that most reserves now all have beautiful health centers, which is good because many communities are, like you're saying, are very remote. And to pack up and take everyone to children's, some of the students with diverse abilities, they do have to get services in the city in order to qualify for those services. Sometimes, as Chris was saying, and sometimes it's a combination of community, hospital, like medical doctors and school district staff, like having to gather all the information in order to make sure that that's the correct way that a student is being identified as having a diverse ability as well.
I think I actually misread that line. So of all the students identified as having diverse abilities, 25% are Indigenous and 75 are non.
Yeah, so there's like, I'm thinking off the top of my head because I had so many numbers in my head. I think it's something like 628 students are identified in our school district as having diverse abilities. Have been identified, and we claim them on our 1701 account in September and in February. And of that 628, 25% of them are Indigenous. So 189.
Yeah, yet our Indigenous population makes up how much of the student body?
It's only 10%. So when you take the
So, okay.
189 and put it over the 547, it's a bigger percentage than just
Yeah.
of those just of the students with diverse abilities.
Okay.
So that's how it was sort of presented in the How Are We Doing report, is the 2575. And then as I looked at it from the other way of going, oh, but that's not actually of the population. When we look at it of the population, only 10% of non-Indigenous students are being identified. And you will see when you look through the How Are We Doing report, and maybe we can share it. I think that it might have been shared out already. That you can actually see the different, they lump a bunch of the categories together. And you can see that our Indigenous students are by far have higher representation in behavior and chronic health categories. So some of those definitely could be because of the increase of services in community, for sure, and lower in the learning disabilities than non-Indigenous students. It's a very different reflection of the two. There is some downward trend as well, I was noticing, for our Indigenous students, which is an upward tick for non-Indigenous students. So it could be, I'm not sure, it could be access to a lot of different pieces. You want to go into the next one, look at the completion. So this is right out of the How Are We Doing report. And the AD, you can see it on the bottom, it's represented, it's the adult dogwood. This is one of the things you may have heard at the BCSTA table, is talking about what dogwood are students receiving. So our 6-year completion rates and 5-year completion rates also will include the adult dogwood. 5 years, not so much, because you have to be a certain age in order to qualify to be an adult dogwood, because it has an age requirement. But the 6-year completion rates definitely would reflect if anyone after the age of 18 received an adult dogwood. So you'll see the difference, how I think the district has done a really good job of narrowing that scope of less and less Indigenous students receiving an adult dogwood. So we're holding that same high expectation that everyone receives a dogwood versus an adult dogwood. So that's really important. You can go to the next one. I know I can click on my screen, but it doesn't do anything. Oh, and I thought we did have another slide. Did you want me to talk about just some of the pieces that we're doing around and some of the trends we've noticed, or just leave that one? I can talk about our success advisors.
For sure.
I think one of the things that I've noticed, I feel like I've been here a long time, but I've only been here since August. It's really nice to actually be in community and really feel that family of community. I really appreciate the definitely the welcomeness of all the community in terms of coming on board and just feeling like I'm part of the team right away. The Indigenous community has absolutely been fabulous, and sometimes it is tricky coming in when you're a guest to a territory. And I've thoroughly enjoyed that piece. And one thing I have noticed too is we have success coaches, or not success coaches, success advisors at our high schools and at our middle school, and the connection that those teachers have with students and the services that are providing to those students and making sure they're staying on track, working with our Indigenous staff, is pretty amazing to see that level of work. And you know that care and attention to each individual student and finding out their story and helping them on their education journey. I know that makes an impact for our students for sure. They also advocate and are part of the school planning and obviously school staff as well. I know all of the schools have, except for Whistler, because they have so few students there, they have monthly success meetings. So I was just at one on Tuesday. It's only Wednesday today. Yeah. On Tuesday at Howe Sound. And we went through every single student. We looked at their latest report card, their absenteeism, where are they struggling, and then who is working with the students to ensure that if they're behind, what does that look like? And we're going to be circling back to that in the next couple of weeks again. And those meetings are ongoing for students. So it's all students, but in particular, we have a particular focus around our Indigenous students. And it's not just the Indigenous staff, it's the administration in the building. It's all of the counselors. It's the teacher leads that are in charge of different pods of students. All the people, everyone is in the same room. So that's a really big piece that I've noticed that I know makes a difference for students. And I'd be really afraid to see what our completion rate would be if we didn't have that. What we need to continue to work on is being diligent in figuring out who are some of our students who are not moving along. So if they come to us, say they come to us from outside, they come from a band school, which is outside of our system, or they come from a different district, and they come for grade 8 and 9 and then leave, they count as a non-graduate for us if they'd never go to a BC school and complete. So they have to go back to a BC public school and complete, or they show as a non-graduate for us. So we do have a number of students who will flip-flop in the north, back and forth to Hakola to the online, or not the online school, in community school. We do see that a little bit where we just had some new students come there for second semester. And sometimes they'll leave and go there for second semester. So there is a lot of communication. They were there today. The students from Hakola were there today at our Indigenous Leadership Day as well. So those relationships are being built also with that school. So we can keep track of, did they graduate? So we know the stories of students who are going just into community, into the school that's there. So yeah.
Question on that.
Yeah.
So say they're counted with us and then they leave and they graduate in Lola or wherever. Can we tell their story and then they're no longer showing as a non-grad to us?
We've asked that before.
Yeah.
Because we had that situation in 2018-19. And nope, you just have to know the story so you can share with the board. This is a portion of the students, and that's why they're showing low and always will. And it is something, I'm sort of
no,
but it is something that we have been asking for that change, because it's disingenuous. It's not, and if we really want to be data informed decision making, then we need real data.
Yeah.
To be fair, or it becomes a distraction.
And they do have an out migration factor where they've looked at, okay, everyone has said, oh, we're gonna make assumption when students discontinue, so they're not transitioning through, or they've left in grade 6, or they've left in grade 8. Well, most students aren't withdrawing from school in grade 8. They've moved somewhere else out of our jurisdiction. They still count. So what they've done is they've compiled all those and figured out what this out migration factor is, and then they add it into our formula so that our rates are slightly higher, trying to take into account that kids do move out. of
Giving
our
us the buffer.
Yeah, they give us a buffer.
So didn't Haflola and sorry, Celeste, I know your hand was up. They were at one point moving towards being able to issue dogwoods.
Yes.
Are they there?
I don't believe, I don't know the answer. I don't think they're there.
I'm not sure. I know that I was speaking with, I'm trying to think of who I was speaking with. I think that they may be really close to doing that. The difference though is that because they're outside of our public education system, they don't count in our system. But I could find out, hey, we have all these students who left. Did they all receive a dogwood, or did they get a graduation certificate? And then we know that story that they have. So if we have a cohort of 60 students and we notice these students up here went to Hakola, we can then ask and try to share information with them to find out if they completed or not in our system, or did they move on somewhere else?
Well, because the reason I asked that is dogwood is a provincial,
It's
whatever.
Recognition.
Recognition or what have you. It's something that perhaps as trustees, we could advocate for within the province and have BCSTA advocate for it. It's like, well, if they're being issued by the province in any case, then they should count for against our numbers. So
If we can.
just
prove it,
something
no.
like
Yeah.
the advocacy side of it. So that's sorry. Jumping in.
That was exactly what I was gonna say. This sounds like an advocacy issue. Why don't we add another motion? If Archie wouldn't mind drafting it for us, so that when we get to that point where if you're serious about doing advocacy on this, because this sounds like somebody just needs to push hard enough to solve this problem. This is not a difficult problem to solve. It just will require a little bit of pressure. And so I wonder if we're making a motion, recommendation to the BCSTA, if we just do 2.
Yeah, I guess it could help others in the province. We don't know that this is happening in our district. We don't know that Hapola is issuing dogwood at this point.
Maybe there's probably 2 separate things. So what I was thinking is to be able to access that data, to be able to, what my idea was in my head that I didn't say out loud. And I think what you're advocating for is something different, but is maybe more important. I'm advocating for data that actually, like, garbage in, garbage out. We need data that tells the actual story. And I don't think it's difficult to obtain that. What you're suggesting is that we advocate for these students to have the dogwood. So, which is more important. No?
No, I'm just advocating.
My
for the numbers
apologies.
to be counted, like
Okay.
if they're dogwood at.
Same thing.
Hapola, they're dogwood
Okay.
here.
Yeah.
then-
Okay, so same thing. So if there is a motion that could be made and we're about to make recommendations to the BCSTA, perhaps that could also be one of them, because this seems like worthwhile and not difficult.
Without sarcasm, I will say that I know that Colleen has years of experience at the ministry, and can share that sometimes making changes to data is actually fraught with bureaucratic red tape. So I would say the advocacy would be necessary, and I agree with you. We'd love to be able to do that and then have that shown over time, right? That actually these students have graduated, because again, for us, not for us, I shouldn't say that. For the lay person, it's data, but we're talking about children, human beings, and I agree they deserve to be recognized.
Well, data is what guides our resource allocation,
Exactly.
right? So we have to get it right. Like, if we don't know what's actually happening, then we're just throwing things around in the dark.
Thank you.
I'm a big data person, so for me, I love it. And when I was at the ministry, that was one of the things that I spent a lot of time doing, was desegregating districts' data and then pointing out things that, because I seem to have access to different pieces. I think though that because Hakola is an Indigenous school, there may be different jurisdictions as well around freedom of information and privacy, being a federal school versus a provincial school and all of those pieces. It may be just data that we can fix ourselves, that we could find out. if
And that's
they're-
why I hesitate to draft any
Yeah.
kind of motion right now without bringing it to finesse. Or bringing it to at least our Indigenous Education Council.
Maybe it can be a next year thing.
Yeah, like there are some sensitivities there and stuff that we need to.
And good question, because Finesse will definitely know, because they are working with all the First Nation schools, obviously in British Columbia. And what does that look like and how is that data sharing going? And I'm not sure where they are with using My Education or other things, because that would help as well. I do know that with the pilot information that I just received today, that My Education is getting better. That it's trying to be better at acquiring that information. So if they're going, students are leaving us and we know they're going to Hakola or another in community school, maybe they're going to Tupela, or they're going to somewhere else. We can actually use that code in My Education to say they are going here, or they're going out of country, or they're going to another province. If we know, if the family shares that with us, we can actually report it. It's just making sure that that data being collected by the schools is accurate. And that's something we're actually working on as well this year, is making it as accurate as possible, because the more accurate we are as putting the data in, the more accurate our data will be, and the more useful it will be for us as well. Yeah.
I think it's important also to add, and again, to thank the board for doing so. So last year for this year's budget, we came to you with the suggestion, with the ask that board operations takes care of shared learning as well as the success advisors. And in so doing, that's allowed both nations, right, to hire a great group of Indigenous support workers at much better wages than before. Also allowed for Leewat Nation to hire an Indigenous advocate for all students of Indigenous ancestry, Leah Dan. And I know that's made a tremendous difference this year in helping to move us forward and identify some trickies that we need to resolve. So I'm very hopeful that this trend will reverse. I can't guarantee it's going to happen this year, but again, with the support of the board in allowing for those additional monies to be spent, I think we have a good plan moving forward. And I will just say publicly how thrilled we are to have Colleen on board, because we know she brings tremendous experience, wisdom, and knowledge to the role. So thank you.
Thank you. And so there's a lot of moving parts. At any time, if anyone wants to look at, more data, let me know. I'm sure that there's a lot of information. But I would encourage you to look at the How Are We Doing report. And if you have any questions around that, just to let us know, because it is a public document. You can find it through obviously the data set, as well as through the Finesse website. They have all the How Are We Doing reports for all school districts, because each school district gets their own. And so it's really, really helpful to have that data ongoing and that push every year. It is getting a little later. I did notice that we used to get it in November, and now we're getting it in February, so I'm not too sure. I'm not sure. I know.
Perhaps.
And it's a year, it's because it is a year behind anyways. The new data set that we now, like literally as of 10 o'clock this morning, have access to is live time. So it's updated every 24 hours. So if we want to see current students and current status of a student, it's as current as the information in there from the report cards to absenteeism. So that's really nice to be able to have on hand to tell more of the story of where is it going sideways, or who's really struggling. We can see that much easier. So.
Okay. Anything else? Anyone online? No, it looks like we're good. So thank you, Colleen.
Thank you.
All right, so we'll move on. Are there any trustee items? Sure, get some there. Hearing none, then move on to board committees. Excuse me, so committee of the whole. We met earlier today and we talked about our calendar for the next couple of months. And calendar and events that we have coming up. There's we'll be attending the South Coast Branch Leadership in Gibson's, right? On March the 9th. And we talked about our ed sessions and what our plans for those for our own professional development as trustees coming up. Also discussed motions for the upcoming BC School Trustees Association AGM, of which we do have one to bring forward later on tonight. And then there was a conversation behind just some of the traffic issues in our in and around our schools, in the areas on the routes to schools and around the school. And that was it for today. So from that, we have looks like we have a couple of recommendations there.
With the minutes of the committee of the whole meeting held on January 17th, 2024.
Thank you, April. Second for that. Thank you, Cynthia. Any objections? Okay, seeing and hearing them, that's accepted. One more.
That the board approves sending a motion for the 2024 BCSTA AGM stated as BCSTA advocates to the Ministry of Education and Childcare for increased funding to cover escalating sick leave expenses in all school districts.
Thank you, April. Second for that. Thank you, Cynthia. Any objections? Seeing and hearing none. Then we can continue. Policy committee. It says my name there, but Cynthia is going to report out on it.
Sure, thank you, Rebecca. The policy committee did meet this morning and our agenda covered a discussion on policy 503, district code of conduct, as well as policy 803, permanent school closures. The policies looked really good. The district code of conduct has been worked on over several months and came back today with a few minor adjustments. And the school permanent closure policy, it looked really quite good. And we just want to make sure that the public is aware that although we are talking about a policy that pertains to permanent school closures, that is not a concern in our district at this moment. And so no parents or students should feel that there's any anticipation of that happening at this time. And
a little reassurance there.
A lot of reassurance. There's no problems right now for us in that area. So that it pretty much covers everything that happened at the meeting. It was a quick committee meeting, really, but with lots of really thoughtful discussion.
Thank you.
So we have a recommendation. I don't know if you want to announce that or not.
Go right ahead.
Okay, so with that, we have a recommendation. If there's anyone prepared to make that.
Can do that for you, that the minutes of the policy committee held on January 17th, 2024 be accepted.
Thank you.
Is there a second for that? I thought you were going to read it. Oh. Second for that motion? Thank you. Well, thanks, Lisa. Thanks, Cynthia. Are there any objections? Seeing and hearing none, then that is carried. And then we move on to our finance. So finance met earlier today as well. So we've had a bit of a day. Today was going through the 2024-2025 budget development survey results. And thank you for your work in that. And thanks for everyone who submitted as well. And we talked about our upcoming partner group meeting, which will be in Whistler next Wednesday. Always an exciting day or evening spent with our partner group. How many do we have attending? Any idea?
As we looked at our sheet,
Yeah, we
I'm sorry, I
looked
don't know
at our
if
sheet.
if you know off the top of your head.
44?
Great.
Nice. And then we went through our 2023-2024 amended annual budget and bylaw, which you will hear a motion coming up. So that was our finance meeting today. And with that, there is a recommendation there if anyone is prepared to make that.
The
Sure.
minutes of the finance committee meeting held on January 17th, 2024. Be accepted.
Oh yeah, thank you. I was reading the wrong thing. Thank you, April. Is there a second for that?
Sure.
Thank you, Lisa. Any objections? Okay, seeing and hearing none, then we can continue. There is nothing to report out on Indigenous education. We haven't met since our last meeting. Public relations. We haven't met. No.
Kind of feel we covered it in the for the district partner meeting. Definitely engagement in that piece. So we did debate whether to have them. We thought we're going to discuss it as a
We haven't met.
finance committees.
But the committee hasn't met.
No,
per
we
se.
didn't. It was neat.
All right, and then with that, then we can move on to our general section, a business arising, of which we don't have anything. Information items, the Fessel report.
Right, so I spoke a little bit earlier. I guess I apologize. It probably should have said Fessel report review. Because with the new framework for enhanced student learning, the ministry is going through different iterations on what they would like to see from districts. And so we received, and the board chair received the annual review for last year's 2022-2023 report. It's in your package. Happy to share that in a conversation with one of the folks from the team who reached out to each superintendent. They're very happy with our report. And again, it's not about our grad rates or anything. It's really, are we meeting the criteria that they're looking for in terms of sharing out information that helps the ministry be confident that we are committed to continuous improvement. So the feedback was provided. I think that I appreciated where they highlighted our strengths. And then in the feedback for focus area 4 and 5 around asking for more detail. I will just share, we're happy to provide that. There have been page limitations put on actually how much you were allowed to share. And we diligently paid with margins and font size and all those things, only to learn at the nth moment that a bunch of analysis didn't count for the pages. We learned that, and I can share this publicly. We learned that in September, and many districts had actually approved the plan in June. We did ours in September, so I wasn't going to redo the review, but we will certainly take the feedback into consideration and provide the details that they're asking for. I will say again, for folks that read the report, the review, it does say, more explicit information regarding how we're targeting strategies to support students with diverse abilities. And I think that's something we actually do very, very well. We're always working to improve. And we could have filled the entire page length with all of our efforts. So we'll be creative about how we ensure that comes across cleanly. Thank you.
Anyone have any questions or comments? And then school alignment meetings.
Yeah, thank you. So it's that time of year again. So every year the school board staff meet with principals and vice principals at each school. So we do these meetings every year. They're starting next week. And there's separate meetings that we have set up for each school. So we don't do them at each school, but we do them for each school. So we use this time to make sure that each school's upcoming school year is aligned with our education plan and our ministry priorities. What we do is we meet with each individual school and say, we look at what's happening in their school for enrollment, what's their capital priorities, what's their tech priorities. Even now that we have Feeding Futures, like what's the needs there at their school for those kind of things. So we look at all of that with each individual school and just try to plan out the budget for the next upcoming year with them. We start looking at staffing as well.
And it's only February, folks. So yes, we're already planning for next year.
Yeah. Already started. And the partner group meeting too is part of that, getting ready for next year. So we use this time to get ready for the budget. The bylaw for next year's budget has to be passed by June of this year. So time goes quickly and we're already starting on that. So yeah, these meetings are a really important step in us getting ready for next year's budget process. So I just wanted to let everybody know that's something that we're working on, and that these meetings are pretty time intensive, and I think it's a few weeks where we're just meeting back to back all the schools. So it's a lot of work, but it's an excellent way to get the next year's budget rolling. Yeah. That's it.
Great, thank you. Anyone have any questions or comments? Okay, so then we can go on to attachments. There's some media report, field trip attachment there for you. There's no correspondence. So that brings us for items for discussion, which is the Shaker, which is the Day of the Devils fundraiser. And Danielle, I see your name is there.
Yeah. So we received, I believe the board received a letter. So we receive this letter every year. So Pemberton Red Devils Alumni Association has been hosting a fundraiser every year since I think 2016 for Pemberton Secondary's athletic program. And usually school events are sanctioned, but this one is not, because there's alcohol served at the event. And so because of that, that's why they have created this association to, do some fundraising for this athletic program. So basically, in the past, the school district has waived the rental fees for this event, but we've always charged back for custodial fees because as per our policy, we have to have a custodian there to clean up on site and stuff like that. So that's what we've done in the past. And so the association is asking for us to waive the rental fees and the custodian fees, but I would recommend to the board that they approve waiving the rental fees and not the custodian fees. So there's been a motion drafted for you to that effect, and leave that with you to see if something wants to.
So do they go ahead, actually, Cynthia, go ahead.
That's it. And just for perfect clarification, you did say this was an event that serves alcohol, but it's also an event that's only for adults.
Yes,
Oh,
thank you. For
Okay.
that.
Just for anyone who's listening who maybe jot down at a moment ago.
Not for students.
Yes, this is
Yeah.
for adults.
And also important to note because of the geography, it's far more expensive for Pemberton secondary students to participate in sporting events and stuff. So I have never heard anything but great things about the Day of the Devil, I think they used to call it, and about the event and about the support of the community and the funds raised. So I can't say enough about it. Now, have they, again, I'm trying to remember, have they always asked us to waive both and we always waive the rental?
Yes.
Okay, so that's the history of it all?
Yeah.
And we always charge for the custodial because it would cost us additional.
That's right.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the monies comes out of operating for those fees to cover the custodial
Mhm.
staff, and because that's a district cost, not a school cost, we we ask that they do pay for
They
that
cover
piece.
that piece, yeah.
That would, but again, without saying, we absolutely appreciate all the efforts and the monies raised to support those students, which is why staff is in full support of their request to waive the fees, and the board could decide to waive the cost of custodian. However, I would caution against that, just because it's additional cost. We are looking at more lean budgets, and it also opens up a bit of a can of worms for other very worthy organizations that use our buildings. So I would just recommend that we do as we've always done and continue our tradition of
And I
waiving
think that's
the
been the
rental fees.
practice throughout the district,
Yes.
not just
yes,
at that
Thank you so
school.
much. Yes.
Melissa?
I don't see where they're asking to waive the custodial fees, just the rental costs.
Oh, I haven't read it, so I'm assuming, Danielle, can you confirm if they're asking for both or just the?
Yeah, so at the second, like at the very bottom, we booked them gymnasium. And so the $3,700 that they're mentioning includes custodial.
But on the last sentence, it says, and applying to the board to waive the rental costs.
Oh,
They're
there we are.
not saying,
Okay,
they're not
there you
saying
go.
anything about custodial.
Well, there you go.
Perfect.
Wonderful.
I think the response just needs to be really clear then, because they might not understand that there's two numbers
Yeah.
combined into one.
Yeah. Yeah.
Need them. You need
There
you
is
have a motion. Oh,
There's
thank you
motion
so
there
much.
if anyone is prepared to make it.
That the Board of Education waive the rental fees for the 2024 the Shaker event at Pemberton Secondary School while still maintaining the custodial fees.
That works.
Second.
Thank you, April. Thank you, Lisa. Are there any objections? Okay, seeing none, then that is carried. With that, we move on to policy motions. So there are a couple of recommendations there. I think Cynthia spoke to these earlier.
Yeah, I'm happy to make the recommendation for policy 503, district student code of conduct, that the Board of Education approve policy 503, district student code of conduct with changes as discussed.
Thank you, Cynthia. Is there a second for that? Thank you, Melissa. Any objections? Okay, seeing and hearing none, then that's carried. There's one more recommendation.
Yeah, I can do that as well. That the Board of Education approve policy 803, permanent school closure with changes as discussed.
Thank you, Cynthia. Second for that. Thank you, April. Any objections? Seeing and hearing none, then that is carried. Brings us to E, action items, which we do not have any. F, items brought up in camera, we don't have any, so.
Sorry, point of order. Did I already speak to make that request at the open board to follow up with the finance? Did I already say that, or was that, did that come out of camera?
You said it already.
And you remember, I can't either.
I think, didn't
Did
we?
I think you might have, but I.
Committee of the whole? I did it at committee of the
Committee of
whole.
the-
I did do it. I just wanted to
Yeah,
make
I
sure I
committee of
covered
the
it.
whole,
Couldn't
we
remember.
decided to bring it. to
Thank
the
you. I'll be
open
quiet
board.
now. I'm getting tired.
We decided to bring it to the open board meeting?
I thought we did.
Yeah,
Am I ta- am I- Or am I talking about the same thing?
No, I think we
No.
did say we were going to talk about it.
Great, then.
Yes.
Can I make the mentions? Now then? I'll do it again anyway, because I think it's important.
Yes,
It's
yes.
important. So I wanted to share that at the finance committee meeting, when we're talking about the use of funds and prioritizing funds, trustee Bickford brought up a letter, some correspondence she received regarding ratios in terms of the number of school psychologists
The student.
to students. Thank you so much. And then I had shared after the fact, when we're no longer in the public, and I wanted to bring it out now, that doing some looking, we currently have 2.75 school psychologists for our population. which is actually above as a ratio, what the latest BCTF ask was, which was 1 to 2,000. And I believe they may be going forward with 1 per 1,800. But that said, we would actually still be within that ratio. So just important to share that with the public because it did come up earlier and I had spoken when we weren't live. Thank you very much for that opportunity to correct the record.
There we go. Perfect. Thank you.
So sorry, if you don't mind, so is it okay if we put that under info items? Is that
Yes,
right? Okay.
sure. It's information.
Thank you.
Plunk that wherever you need to.
Yeah.
And I obviously forgot about it too. Okay, so from that, then we move on to bylaws. We have the 2023-2024 amended annual budget and bylaw. Are you speaking more to this or?
I can just a little bit. So we did have our finance committee meeting today and I just want to thank everybody for the patience around that because our amended annual budget took many, many hours for us to work through. So just overall, just some quick highlights. We ended up having additional $2 million from the preliminary budget from extra revenue. But we ended up actually giving back to schools an extra $4 million. So we ended up having to do a lot of shifting around to make this budget work. And so you can actually see that in the budget documents if you want to take a look at that for the public. We did talk about that today in the finance committee meeting. So it was a tough amended budget. And yeah, so this is the result of it, the budget bylaw here.
Okay. If there aren't any questions or comments, there is a recommendation.
I think I'll make a comment. Yeah, I think that what stood out most to me is that things are lean, and that the expectation from the public based on what we heard today in the finance meeting, which was recorded and anyone can watch at their leisure, is that things are lean right now and they may be lean for the years to come. And so we need to have an expectation of difficult decisions being made in the coming years and just to have a realistic outlook of what is to come in the school district.
Yeah, well said.
Thank you. Agreed.
Okay. Anyone else? Looks like it's so. Is anyone ready to read the recommendation?
Is it the whole thing?
The whole thing.
That the Board of Education unanimously agree to waive the requirement that first, second, and third reading of school district number 48 Sea to Sky amended annual budget bylaw for the fiscal year 2023-2024 be given on different dates.
But then first, so then we need to say a seconder. So there's
Okay.
two motions.
Okay. Gotcha.
Second now. Second. Okay. I'm still trying to understand where that goes. So that's the recommendation and this is not part of it?
I think it's below it, like it just needs to go up above. Does that make sense? The second recommendation. But we need to vote on the first one, which was to waive this. To waive and then redo it.
Yeah, that's the same. Well, it's kind of the same. So when you read the amended budget bylaw, it's part of the bottom motion? Yeah. Okay, sorry.
That's right.
Thank you, April, and who seconded that? Cynthia. Any objections? Okay, seeing and hearing none, and that's carried.
We'll carry on.
If you want.
Second motion.
It's a second motion.
And it's titled amended annual budget bylaw.
Yes.
Got it. Okay. Amended annual budget bylaw. The bylaw of the Board of Education of School District number 48 Sea to Sky called the board to adopt the amended annual budget of the board for the fiscal year 2023-2024 pursuant to section 113 of the School Act, RSBC 1996 C 412, as amended from time to time, called the Act. The board has complied with the provisions of the Act, ministerial orders, and Ministry of Education and Child Care policies respecting the amended annual budget adopted by this bylaw. This bylaw may be cited as School District Number 48 Sea to Sky amended annual budget bylaw for the fiscal year 2023-2024. The attached statement 2 showing the estimated revenue and expense for the 2023-2024 fiscal year and the total budget bylaw amount of $85,152,831 for the 2023-2024 fiscal year was prepared in accordance with the Act. Number 4, Statement 2 and 4 and Schedules 1 to 4 are adopted as the amended annual budget of the board for the fiscal year 2023-2024. Read a first time the 14th day of February 2024. Read a second time the 14th day of February 2024. Read a third time, passed and adopted the 14th day of February 2024.
Then you gotta continue, I believe.
Okay. Recommendation that the Board of Education approve School District Number 48 Sea to Sky amended annual budget bylaw for the fiscal year 2023-2024 as presented.
Thank you, April. Second for that? Yeah. Any objections? Or do we need her to read it again?
I'm ready.
No objections, so that is carried. Thank you.
One would think you'd have to read it 3 times.
How matter?
It says it.
So, with that then, any questions and clarification from the public?
No, that's intentional.
Okay, so 7:37 and, we've concluded the business of this agenda and are now adjourned. So, thank you, ladies.
Thank you.
Take care.